Hello, audience. Welcome you all. This sales talk show is about sales for sales professionals, business owners, and sales coaches. And here we bring international CEOs, international authors, international sales coaches, sales leaders, everyone, where we discuss about their sales journey, challenges, and their key selling skills, their daily habits, and their secrets to get success in sales. So these are all the topics we are going to discuss today as well. And we have an amazing guest today, Julie Hansen. She's expert in virtual selling. I know everyone, what is virtual selling is through video, how we going to build customer relationships and increase the sales revenue. So we are going to talk in detail about this. So let me introduce Julie Hansen now. Um, Julie Hansen is a virtual selling expert who helps salespeople connect, collaborate, and close more deals using video. Julie is the author of three sales books, including the new Amazon bestseller "Look Me in the Eye," using video to build relationships with customers, partners, and teams. She's also the founder of the Selling on Video Masterclass. Julie worked as a professional actor, appearing in over 50 films, plays, and television shows. So I welcome Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hi, very nice to be here with you.
Thank you. And I must say, you're doing wonderful job on teaching virtual selling. It's really new concept. After listening to your podcast and other videos, I understood what is virtual selling, how to do sales through virtual selling. Yeah.
Right, it's not something that we just naturally know how to do, right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's a new medium, so that requires new skills.
Yeah. So, just can you give a brief summary about how your sales journey has started?
Absolutely. I actually started out as a buyer, so I would have salespeople calling on me, and I always felt like they were having a lot more fun than I was. They were had a lot more freedom, met all kinds of people where I was chained to my desk. And
Okay.
so I made that transition. And what was interesting, I love people, and I love the working with different companies and having all the different personalities. But I didn't realize how different it would be, because when you're a buyer, of course, everybody takes your call, right?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to hear from you, and you don't get rejected. And sales is very different. And so I really struggled that first year to gain confidence and not get personally, hurt by the rejection. So I thought, what can I do to get over this hurdle and to really gain confidence and, speaking up in front of people and find my voice. And so I started taking some acting classes. And so that really helped me with all those things, with, gaining confidence, being able to present in front of people and just really be present and not be so self-conscious. And so that was sort of my path, as far as, it helped me become a better salesperson, it helped me become a better manager. And then from that, I started my own business coaching other salespeople on how to use some of the techniques I learned as an actor to be more confident and to present more effectively in front of audiences.
Okay. Okay, that's nice. And what do you think the commonalities between actor and sales professional? Is there any difference, or there's a common things in both of them? Yeah.
There's a lot in common, and that's what really struck me, and what my first book, Act Like a Sales Pro, is about, are how the things that I learned as an actor were so informative for me as a salesperson. Because as an actor, you're really learning how to communicate as effectively as possible, and how to really connect with your scene partner, for example, and how to really be present and in the moment. And as an actor, you do all your rehearsal and your practice before you get in front of the camera, right?
Yeah.
And learning how to apply that in sales, I think, is equally important, because I see a lot of salespeople that are just practicing on customers, right? We don't put the practice in. We don't understand that to be able to have that freedom and be able to really focus on your customer, you have to have, you have to prepare ahead of time so that you can be present, because many people are on these virtual calls and they're like, okay, I got to deal with my platform, I got to look at my customer, I got to show slides, I've got to say this. And so they're not able to really connect on that level.
Yeah. No, actually, as you rightly said, preparation is really important in sales.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I agree to it. And also, one more thing is, do you think virtual selling, is it a learnable skills anyone can learn, or it's really, tough to adopt and implement?
Yeah, it's absolutely a learnable skill because, like I said, there's nothing natural about it. People aren't naturally born with the ability to speak well on camera. Maybe some people are just fortunate they to happen to be good on camera, but it's not an innate ability. Even as an actor, most actors start out in the theater like I did. And when you transition to work on a film or a television show, you have to navigate this world very differently. I went to my first on camera audition and I just did the same things I did for a theatrical audition. And of course, they were like, whoa, what are you doing? Right? Stop, look at the camera. It's over there. Don't do this. Don't do that. And so I learned that in order to succeed in this medium, I had to learn some new skills. And so I did what actors do when they want to transition to working in front of the camera, which is I took some on camera training classes. And that really teaches you how to act as naturally as possible in this small space and communicate, through the camera to your audience and really make your audience feel connected. And those are not natural skills.
Yeah.
So they absolutely can be learned. And that's why I put together the Selling on Video Masterclass to really walk people through how do you look at a camera and see your customer, and how do you move within this environment that doesn't distract people, and that supports your message and get your ideas across effectively.
Okay, I think you are the right person to teach us virtual selling because you already have the experience, right, in front of camera, studio, everything. So I
Well,
think,
it's good. There's a lot of advice out there, and that's part of the reason I wrote the book too, because there's a lot of advice from people who've never really worked professionally on camera, like do this, don't use your hands, do that. It's very confusing for salespeople to try and figure it out on themselves by themselves. And the thing is, we don't have to figure it out by ourselves because a whole other industry has been doing this for decades and decades. Whether it's TV personalities or actors, they have figured out how to connect with an audience through a camera. And so it's interesting as we expect business people to just, put your camera on and figure it out, right? And that's like I said, it's not natural. So there are some techniques that help you achieve that same effect.
I really can relate to it because I believe eye to eye contact plays a very important role, whether it is virtual or a face to face meeting, because you will able to really understand their psychology, what is going on in their mind, whether they are really happy continuing the conversation or they are little, hesitant to continue the conversation. Everything we will be able to know by through eye to eye contact. What do you think about it?
Yes, eye contact is very important, and there's some research that the relationship experts say in order to build a relationship, you should aim for making eye contact about 2/3 of the time. It's one of the quickest ways to build a relationship. When we are making direct eye contact with someone, it releases oxytocin, which is a hormone that makes us feel more. They call it the love hormone, but it just makes you more receptive to the other person. It makes the other person that's making eye contact with you feel like they are telling the truth. They appear confident. So all these good qualities are associated with eye contact. Now, the problem is it's much more difficult to make eye contact virtually because you have to look at the camera, which does not always align with your customer's face, right? So that is the skill to be able to learn to look at the camera, to to see your customer in that camera, and then also to know how to read their body language uh, while you're looking at the camera. So that's a technique that I teach in the book in the master class, because it is there's an art to it, right? It's not
Yeah.
natural. And what a lot of people do is they'll do this sort of shifty up down, and our eyes convey a lot of meaning to our customer just subconsciously. When we see people with shifty eyes, we think they're not telling the truth, they're not confident, they don't have credibility. And so our eyes really play a very important role in face-to-face selling and virtual selling. It's just we have to work at it harder on virtual sales because of the environment that we're in.
One more question is just came to my mind, whether through eye to eye contact or the face to face or virtual, will we able to transfer our energy, positive energy, the vibes to the opposite person? What do you think?
Yes, it really is a transfer of energy, and eye contact is part of that energy. You can feel it, when someone is looking down, you don't feel as connected to them, right? You feel their energy is sort of focused in another direction. And virtually, we already lose quite a bit of energy because we're not face to face. There, we have that
Yes.
natural energy that we're able to convey. So we're already at a bit of a disadvantage. So when you take away eye contact and you have very little body language going on, it's really hard for those relationships to take hold. So it's important to use that tool.
Mm. So, can you share some tips to, build the customer relationships through virtual selling?
Yes, relationships are really the heart of sales,
Yeah.
and it's important to understand what makes a relationship possible. And so in the book, I talk about there's certain qualities that need to be present for a relationship to take hold. And things like you have to think the other person is listening to you, that they're interested, that they care about you, right? They have empathy, they're credible, they're authentic. And all those qualities, if they are present, you are much have a much greater chance of building a relationship, because you're not going to build a relationship with someone who you think is not being themselves, isn't listening, or is not a credible person. Now, the problem is that we have spent our entire lives working on those skills, those building skills in person, right? We know how to express active listening. We know how to be interested in person. We know how to convey credibility. But virtually, we are not communicating those qualities. For instance, we talked about eye contact. If I am not looking at the camera, which is the only way my customer is going to feel like I'm listening to them, or I'm interested in them, or I'm trustworthy, then my customer is going to have a hard time connecting with me, right? No matter what great message I'm saying, if I am looking at if I'm basically looking at my desk the whole time we're talking, your customer is going to feel like, I don't really feel like they're present. And sometimes I hear people say, well, they know that I'm looking at their image on the screen, but our customer is not necessarily going to make excuses for our behavior, right? That's not their job, especially if it's someone you're just meeting. They're not going to give you all the excuses that somebody who knows you might. And also, relationships are not built on logic. That's a logical explanation. Well, they're busy, they're managing their platform, they're trying to read my body language, they're trying to do all this. Those are reasons. Relationships are built on feelings and emotions. And so all I know as a customer, if you're not looking at me, if you appear distracted, if you're, um, you know, moving quickly, that you appear nervous or disinterested. And that's what, at the end of the day, people are going to remember.
And how important to switch on the video, many customer hesitant to switch on the video, even though you would like to switch on the video, but opposite person not switching on. So what's
Yeah.
your advice?
And that is a problem. And we can't. necessarily control what other people do. Like, I can't make my customer put their camera on. I can encourage them to before the call by saying, "Hey, I'm going to be on video. It'd be great to see you too, since so we can connect." And then when they get on the call, if they don't have it on, just say, "Hey, when should we put our video on just to, say hello?" And, sometimes people have a good reason not to have their camera on. So I don't feel like you can push them. You don't want to make prospect defensive, right? Uh, but we have to, as salespeople, we have to get comfortable speaking to that camera, whether we can see the other person or not, because they're still there and they get all the advantage of seeing you and your body language and seeing that you're a real person and you're trying to connect with them. Um, so it's really important that you still have your camera on and don't use that as an excuse, because otherwise, why are we having video calls if we're not showing our face, right? There's so much value in getting in front of a customer and letting them get to know you. We've complained for years as salespeople, like, well, my customers don't see me as a real person, right? They just think of me as a business person. Well, here we are. Now we have this opportunity for customers to, come into our homes, for us to see, their homes, and to have a different relationship on a more equal footing. And to not take advantage of that is really short-sighted.
Yeah, that's true. And if at all people do not learn this skill, virtual selling skill, what is that they're going to lose?
They're going to be at a real disadvantage, because this skill that we've been practicing over the past 20 months is really showing us that there is another way to communicate with customers. Customers actually prefer these virtual interactions with salespeople. So if we're really concerned about how the buyer likes to be engaged, then we need to note that. And it's also a much more efficient process, especially early on in the stage, the sales cycle. So the genie is not going to go back in the bottle, right? This is going to be part of our toolkit. And moving forward, as people are maybe doing a combination of live and virtual interactions, your virtual skills need to compete with other people's in-person skills. So where we're at now is really not going to cut it. We got on camera very quickly as an industry, and that was great, and that was really important just to make that first step. But now we have to really look at, are we using the camera in a way that really helps our relationship and builds a relationship, or are we just using it as you know a phone, a glorified phone, right? To talk to people, and we're not worried about how this physical, affects them on the other end, and using this space to really connect with them as impactfully as possible. And that's where the future is headed. And I think as certain salespeople start to embrace that and learn those skills, um, if you don't have those, you're really going to be struggling to build those relationships and win that business.
Yeah, I agree to you because see, in this pandemic, everyone are getting adopted to to virtual meetings more than customer visit or traveling a longer distance. Everyone are now having a habit of staying in one place and having a con call. Earlier, before pandemic, it was not that case. Everyone used to face to face meeting, but now everyone have it in mind, even through virtual selling meeting can happen.
Right, right. Even
So
if it's just part of the first part of the sales cycle, or, for once you have a relationship, it's easier to connect virtually because you've established that relationship. So yeah, I think it's here to stay in a certain combination of events.
yeah, so I believe even in future it's going to continue this kind of a virtual selling. Yeah, so it's going to continue. And this skill is has to be adopted by each and every sales professional, so that ahead it will going to help them. And one more question is, since there are few women in sales audience as well, so
Hmm.
I want to know, even for a women in sales learning this virtual selling skills, how challenges it would be, or is it going to be easy for them? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. So I've worked with thousands of salespeople over the past 2 years on this skill, and I think everybody has. I'll say most people have their insecurities about being on camera. I've found that women are more aware of those, or more in touch with those. It's often, oh, I look terrible on camera, and I feel, they tend to be overcritical, and that's something that we have to learn how to deal with, that inner critic. And it, it's it's a challenge, right? Nobody sees himself on video and goes, "Oh, I look fantastic," right? It rarely happens, even men, right? But women tend to really pick on some things and get self-conscious about it, and it takes them out of the moment. So I work with people, salespeople, to look at their videos in a more objective way, and sort of look at it as a director, and evaluate yourself, not on, oh, what's my hair doing, and why do I look, some of these characteristics that we're born with, that are, one eyebrow does something when you know
Yeah.
that the other one doesn't. You can't help certain physical attributes, and for the most part you were walking around in person looking just like you are on camera, but you didn't know it. And so the problem is, we now have this awareness, and it's hard to assimilate that. So learning how to evaluate yourself on video without critically judging yourself so harshly is a really important skill. And so I teach people how to go through a video and just look for, what did I do well, right? We're all doing something well. And then, what did I do that, not necessarily how I look, not focused on that, but what did I do that might cause my customer to tune out, that made me appear like I wasn't confident or credible, or I looked distracted. Those are the things that we want to look for, those behaviors that we're doing that we can start to work on, as opposed to, I don't like the way I look. Because when we start there, we often stop there because it's too overwhelming. Like, oh, I'm terrible on video. And then we don't know where to begin to work on that skill. So walking through it in a very, very practical manner, almost looking at yourself as a director. You're directing this show. Like, what did that performer do that was good, and what did they do that maybe caused the audience to tune out, and fixing those things.
And I believe to just recheck their recording, like whether they've done well, where it went wrong. I think reviewing their past virtual selling meetings will help them to improve their skills, right? What do you think?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I always suggest people, start by just get a baseline, like record yourself on a call before you've really worked on anything, and then make a list of, like I said, what you did well, what needs to be worked on, and then pick pick one thing to work on, right? Pick one thing, work on that, whether it's eye contact, whether it's body language, whether it's your voice, how you're showing up energetically. Work on that, and then, as you get better at that, record yourself, see how you're doing, then work on the next thing. Because if you try to work on everything all at once, you'll get overwhelmed, and you'll spend too much time thinking about it. And you want to work on these things when you are off camera, or when you are talking to friends or family on video, because you don't want to practice on your customer.
Yeah, that's a very good idea, actually.
Yeah, because I mean, too many people think, well, I'll do this when I'm on with my customer. But if it's not something you do when you're not with your customer, when you're with friends or with family or peers, you're going to be thinking about it, right? You're going to be trying on new behavior, and it's going to feel very unnatural, and it's going to take you out of the moment, which means you're not going to be really focused on your customer because you're going to be thinking about, am I making eye contact? Okay, I got to hold it here. Okay, I can check in for body language. Okay, am I in frame? Oh, am I sitting up straight? How's my energy? Okay, I got to bring that up. You just can't do it.
Yeah. And also you have to take care of the questions, what questions
Right.
you're going to ask next,
Yeah,
you
not
know.
that doesn't even include the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And managing your audience and your platform, and maybe you're showing slides. Too much going on to be working on the skills during your calls. Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you give a pass in between, then, your audience going to lose the interest and is going to move away. So you should ensure how you're going to engage the audience by asking more and more questions, and you have to be alert with all your postures, gestures,
Right,
right?
right, absolutely. Well, you're right, because your audience, what we found about virtual selling is that audiences, customers, especially if you have a group of them, tend to be very passive. They aren't as quick to ask questions or answer questions. And so if you don't come prepared with a plan, like how you're going to interact, when you're going to interact, and you do it consistently, then you're going to have a very flat presentation. You have very little interaction, which is really uncomfortable for a salesperson, right? To throw a question out there and have nobody answering it. Many times it's because of the way salespeople ask questions, and so we can improve our interaction by just making sure, one, that we're looking at the camera when we ask the question. Because if I'm looking down and I ask you, so tell me, how are you currently doing this? First of all, you may wonder if I really expect an answer because I'm not looking at you. And also, if there's other people on the call, I don't feel necessarily like you're talking to me. Whereas if on video, everybody's having their own personal experience. So every person on that call, if you speak to the camera, will feel like you are talking just to them. So they'll feel a little more inclined to answer.
Yeah. You know, how I do is, as and when you are giving me the answers for my last questions, I prepare the next question in my mind, so that as soon as you complete your answer, the next question I'm going to ask you, eye to eye contact. Because as and when you complete the answer, I'm, reading the question, not seeing you face to face, eye to eye contact will not going to, give a good impression between customers. So that technique I always use. I keep in mind my next question, so that as soon as you complete the first answer, the next is ready.
Yeah, you want to be familiar with what you're going to say and what you're going to ask, and even if you have to check your notes, um, that's okay. I think I teach a technique which actors use when they're rehearsing, which is, if you need a line, if you need to find that question, you look down, you get the question, and then you bring it back to the camera. So I might say,
Okay.
I have another question for you. I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, so tell me how many times you're, having these video calls on a weekly basis, as opposed to me sort of looking down for a question and saying it. So how many times are you making these video calls? Right? It's a much different experience.
Yeah.
So I don't have to be afraid to use my tools if I need to, but I need to use them in a way that keeps my audience engaged and disconnects as little as possible.
Okay, yeah, I agree. And my next question is like, how this virtual selling is really going to help in increasing the sales revenue?
That's really the bottom line, isn't it? Why are we doing this if
Yeah.
it's not going to increase sales? Well, there's there's a bunch of studies out that really show the impact of using video, whether it's sending a video to someone, they have higher open rates than regular prospecting emails. Um, there's a study by gong.io, which does a lot of sales call analytics, and they found that sales calls that use video, uh, they close more deals than sales calls that didn't. They studied like 67,000 sales calls, and they found that to
Wow.
be true. So if you think about it, it makes sense. It's much easier if you can't see someone to turn them down, to not talk to them, to put them off. Whereas if I see you in front of me, I know you're a real person, and I feel a little sense of obligation to pay more attention, to be more engaged, and I'm more moved by your humanness, by your eye contact. I can see that you care. I can see that you're interested. I can see you're passionate about what you're selling. Those things, if you don't have your video on, those things all have to be carried by your voice and your words. And that's a heavy burden to put on those skills. So you have all these other tools when you're on video to communicate and to connect. So really, if you think about it, because we are human, and that's how, we the another human's face is the most compelling thing to a human being. And there's studies that are done on that. So using that to your advantage to build a relationship, which, if you believe relationships are important to sales, that can lead to that value-based relationship and sales.
Yeah, that's really true. Customer relationship is the foundation of any sales.
Right, right. Yeah, so there's ways to build it that are not using video, but it takes a lot longer. It takes longer to trust somebody when you haven't seen them. It takes longer to feel that they're credible. There's still a seed of doubt. Whereas if you just see someone, it can quickly, remove a lot of those obstacles.
There is a post I have written recently. Customer is going to give you order because he like you more than your product or service.
Mm. Well, it's still a people business. I mean, people buy from people, and all things being equal, um, if they like you better than your competitor, they're going to buy you, right? If they are on the fence but they really like you, that can be the deciding factor, right? If they don't like you, or they don't feel like they know you or trust you, you've just added another obstacle that is either going to cause you to lose the sale or certainly elongate the process, which none of us want to do.
Yeah, that's true. My next question is like, now, women in sales, like women getting into sales is a big challenge globally. There is a lot of gender gap, all these things. So now, because of this virtual selling, how women get motivated to get into sales?
Well, I think it's leveled the playing field a little bit, right? Because now we are able to connect from wherever we were, and women that perhaps had families and obligations uh, beyond their job that kept them from taking a sales job that required a lot of traveling, now have the ability to manage their own schedule and be at home. So I think that opens up the door to a lot of women who would be really terrific in sales. And and there's a lot of industries too that have recognized that they've been very slow to accommodate women's needs or to invite women into their organization and promote them. And that's changing, not quickly enough, but it is changing. And so I think it's a different environment now. So women that have maybe tried sales 10 years ago and found it, not an environment they felt wanted or comfortable in, I think they'd find it a different experience now in a
Yeah.
lot of companies. There's certainly not across the board, but there are places where that equity has been really worked on by the company and the managers and the teams to really make people feel on an equal basis. And so I think women have a much better chance to feel like they fit in and belong than they did 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's really a right answer. Actually, recently one girl approached me and she said, I'm really scared to travel alone because of security reasons, all this. I think that kind of a mindset girl who is really afraid to travel alone, for a sales visit, customer visit, I think for them this helps.
Yeah, absolutely. It does opens up lots of opportunities for people for that didn't want to travel for whatever reason, security, health, family.
Family.
Yes, there's all kinds of reasons that traveling is not too much fun anymore. So I get it.
Yeah. And tell us about your book, Look Me in the Eye.
Yes. So my book, Look Me in the Eye, was born out of you know, the salespeople working with all the changes going on to transition to working on camera, and um, I used a lot of the examples from the salespeople that I worked with, and their challenges and questions that they had about, well, how do I connect with a customer on camera? What if I'm using two screens? What if I have 100 people on a call? And what if I'm presenting or I'm doing a demo? So I tried to address all the questions that salespeople have about communicating on video and staying connected with their audience. So I approach it from the aspect of, certainly an actor or a reporter. I interviewed lots of sports reporters and TV personalities to see how they connected with their audience. And so took those learnings and put it into the book so that salespeople can really figure out just tactically, okay, what do I need to do? How often do I need to look at the camera? When can I look away and not really break that connection with my customer? How can I read body language while I'm looking at the camera? And what does that body language mean? Because a lot of the body language we're seeing on screen can mean different things than it would if we saw it in person, just because of how people show up in front of a screen.
Yeah.
So I tried to address all those to give salespeople, really a guide as they're going through to not just be on camera, but to connect on camera and to really start to build those relationships and use the medium for what the possibilities of what it can bring to them.
Yeah, I think connect is so important. It is not just being in the camera, but actually you're connecting and engaging with your customer.
Right, right. It's so much more than just, okay, just turn on the camera and do what you normally do. It's, absolutely. So it's taking some of the basics that now we're on camera. Okay, how do we take it to the next level and really, really make people feel like they are sitting across from us having a cup of coffee? That's that's how we connect with people, is by creating that environment, and that we have control over on, how we behave on camera.
But do you think mindset plays a role, because you really have to have a good mindset to interact, to have that energy. Yeah.
Yes, yes, mindset is absolutely important, especially before a call, because energy is, like I said earlier, energy is sort of depleted when we're on camera. So we have to bring energy, and energy is directly related to how much we care about something. So I can't really fake. I guess I could fake, but the camera is also a lie detector. It picks up when people are, they're incongruent or they're pretending to be interested. We can see that. As humans, we're really good at reading people's, what's going on behind their eyes.
Yeah.
And when your eyes are front and center on this screen, and that's all your customer has to look at, you better be congruent, you better be on point. So I have to really show up in a way that is, energy. I'm excited to be here. I'm in the moment. I'm present. I'm here for you. Because if I'm a little bit distracted, my eye contact's off, and I'm moving around, um, I'm not going to make that impression that is going to help me, meet you halfway. And so starts with a mindset, like, why am I on this call? Why am I jumping on with this customer? What am I, how do I want them to feel and how can I transfer that feeling? Like if I want you to get excited about something, I have to think about, okay, what's exciting that I'm going to share? And I can't wait to really share this with them. So we have to get in that state. And that does start, mentally, and then it starts running through your body physically, and it comes out as a transfer of energy.
And how important to have the preparation before your virtual call?
Oh, absolutely important. Actors would never wait until, the camera goes on to be, in camera ready position and energy. So getting yourself prepared before those calls is so important. Certainly learning the skills off camera and on camera with peers and friends, so you're not struggling to figure out where to move and where to look and how to just be free in this environment. But also preparing in terms of being confident with your message. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to memorize the whole thing, but just being confident about what you want to get across, knowing how you're going to start, how you're going to lead into this conversation. I would say nerves are, whether you're an actor or a salesperson, nerves are always the highest right at the beginning of the call, right? That's when we're most nervous. So knowing what is that first line I'm going to say? What is that? So I have that memorized. And then when I say it, once you get into it, then your muscle memory starts to kick in, and get more confident. But if you flub up that first line, or you're trying to think of something smart or funny in the moment, and it falls flat, or you can't think of anything, then you're starting out, you're hurting your confidence right in the beginning. So really nailing that first moment is important, because it's also your first impression, right? So you want to make sure and get that right.
Yeah, I agree. At least a few first questions or what you're going to discuss initially, if you prepare that well, I think then things fall in place, right?
They do. Yes, yes.
And one more question is, especially for you, I want to ask,
Yeah.
other than sales, see, we are talking about customer order sales. Other than sales professionals, how important this virtual selling, other professions?
I think this is a skill that everybody needs for the future. And I think it's interesting. A lot of times people are not considering themselves in sales, but they actually are part of the customer team, right? They are instrumental, whether they're subject matter experts or technical experts or customer service. They're part of that customer's experience. And so while you may not technically have a role that says salesperson, you are dealing with customers, and you are contributing to that whole experience of your company and your product and service. So it's important to have those good experiences. Like when I talk to someone in customer service, if they're not looking at me and I'm telling them about how I'm really having a problem, and they're looking away or they look distracted, that's not going to be a good experience. I'm not going to feel like they're listening, right? And that's what do customers want. They want to be heard, and they want to be seen and understood. And so these are skills that really transcend sales, and um, really apply to most roles in business. Even if you're if you have to speak to your manager, do you want to present yourself in a way that communicates confidence and enthusiasm, or do you want them to doubt your ability to do your job? All these things are what you are conveying through the camera, whether you're aware of it or not. So learning how to navigate this environment is really a vital skill in business, no matter what your role is.
Yeah, even I see podcast, now many talk shows, video talk show, video podcast, and even with your boss, as you said. And there are so many other profession like where this virtual call, virtual meetings everywhere now. It's all started. Even if you want to talk to your boss, your teams, your
Right,
colleagues, yeah,
right. So we can make those, we can improve collaboration and acceptance of ideas if we can communicate effectively on camera, right? That's why we are communicating. That's why we don't do everything via email or Slack, right? Because we want to have those interactions, and We want to see how things land on a different person, and see how energized they are by what we've presented. And so you want to use all those tools and be able to communicate those qualities to your team or your manager or whoever you're talking to.
And also the coaches, right now every coaching is happening through Zoom call or whatever. So even for a coaches, this kind of a virtual selling skill is so important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's if you're a coach and you want someone, when you're talking to someone about improving something that they're doing, and that can be a very sensitive conversation, you're going to have much more credibility and appear more empathetic if you're looking at them through the camera, right? And if your face expresses empathy, and it's all these signals we get from people that really start to create that relationship. And we can do that with video if we learn to use it well.
Yeah. And just want to know what is your daily habits, which others also can follow.
My daily habits. Well, certainly varies if I'm getting up to do a podcast or get in a workshop. So I always warm up before I get up. Before I get up, I warm up first before I get in front of the computer. Right. I make sure I get my energy up. I always have a glass of water with lemon, because lemon clears the vocal cords and lubricates, so you can speak more freely and not get dry mouth, which is awful on video. And just make sure I'm energized before I show up. And then, of course, I look at what I have ahead and I do some preparation. I usually try to prepare the day before. If I've got a podcast like this, prepare for the talking points and know my audience, just so I can go into it with some comfort, right? And not scrambling at the last minute, like, oh yeah, what am I doing today? Okay. Because that nervousness will read on the camera if you don't take care of it, if you don't allow yourself the time to properly prepare and be aware of what you're doing.
I think more than face to face meeting, this kind of small things, this nervousness, everything will show up very easily, I believe, right?
It is. It's the camera magnifies a lot of behavior, and that's why we have to understand. And I talk about in the book, we have to understand how the camera sees things, because how the camera sees things, how it reads behavior, is how your customer reads behavior. So we may not know that something we're doing is terribly distracting or hurting our credibility. And we need to be aware of those things and understand what the experience is your customer is having on their screen. Because otherwise you're just operating in the dark and hoping for the best. And so I walk through in the book, like, what does the camera do to your body language? Why do most people appear very stony faced on video? They have an expression I call resting business face, right? It's very blank. It doesn't show any emotion or expression. And it's hard to connect to, right? If I'm talking to somebody and their face is just blank the whole time, or they're telling me good news, they say, well, that's going to save you $100,000. And their face could be the same as if they were saying, pass the salt, right? That's not congruent, right? It doesn't match your words. And it also doesn't give me, the listener, anything to connect with. So you want to make sure that your face is expressing what emotions are going on, or what is appropriate. So very often people do not smile on video. It's a really,
Yes.
it's a rare occasion. And so I always say, that's one of our power tools on video, because a smile conveys friendliness, approachability, likability, all these qualities that you want
Very true.
associated with you, right?
Yeah.
So you have to look for places to smile, right? You have to smile in the beginning. And it's interesting because a smile is one of the things that the camera won't pick up unless it's a full smile. Like a lot of people think they're smiling, and they're just barely turning up their lips. And so on camera, that doesn't really read like a smile. So if you're going to smile, you have to fully commit to a smile, and not a big phony smile. You have to think about, why am I smiling? I'm smiling because I'm happy to see you, right? I'm smiling because we're talking about my favorite subject, or I'm excited what you just shared with me. So find reasons to smile and to be more expressive, because I always say, if your face has nothing to say, why are you on video? Right? If it's not adding anything to the conversation or supporting your conversation, then it could be a phone call.
Yeah, that's true. I think more than selling skills, your mindset, that plays an important role, because your mindset only is going to make you smile, right? If you have a good
Yes.
mindset.
Yes, and that's one of the things I talk about in the book, because if you just paste on a phony smile, people can sense that something's off, right? We are very aware of that as human beings, and like I said, because your face is magnified in this small screen, we'll pick that up, and that just sows a seed of doubt in your customer's mind. So it's important to really, part of that preparation is, why am I having this conversation, and what am I excited about? And getting to that point where you can't wait to have this conversation. That's the type of energy that reads really well on camera, and that you want to try to bring to those calls, and that will help you be more expressive and more engaged with your audience, and it'll make them feel more engaged.
And since we are having sales audience here, three key selling skills which you want to share with us. Key selling skills.
Three key selling skills. Well, certainly presenting yourself well on video is the primary skill I'm focused on now. Is how do we present ourselves well, and the book is really a manual for that. But also, I think learning how to use referrals, and how to work with customers, and to expand our referral base. I think that's very important today, as we're trying to grow our customer base, to use our present customers and have them help us expand our network, working with people that already like us, right?
Yeah,
That's the one of the easiest ways to
very
build
true.
business. And then I guess thirdly would be using video to prospect. Um, right now, we have a really great opportunity to draw more attention, or to get more attention from our audience by using video. But more and more people are using video, and pretty soon it's going to be as crowded as email, right? It's going to be the another spam layer. So getting on board with using video to send messages to prospects, to create, to use as follow up to calls, I think is very important. To start to use video in your sales cycle, I think can really help you.
Yeah, that's a very good sales skills you have shared us. My last question is, what is that secret of your success overall?
What is the secret of my success?
Yeah.
Gosh, I was talking to somebody, actually a college class last night, a college of sales, new sales students, and I think it's really the ability to adapt, and to see a need, and to address it. So, for instance, um, whether it's seeing a need in a client and being able to see how you can solve that problem and adapt it quickly, or like in my own business, seeing that, oh gosh, everybody's going virtual, and I learned a skill to help people do this, and how to create a product around that helps salespeople, address that challenge. So being able to pivot and adapt, especially in this ever changing environment, has been really important to my success. In addition to just being resilient, just keep, and I think that's such an important for sales, is just keep going, right? Not letting things knock you down, or knock you down for long, right? We all get rejected. I learned as an actor, like, I thought sales rejection was bad, but as an actor, I mean, they really are rejecting you. In sales, at least you can say, well, they didn't like my product, they didn't like my service. And so, when another actor told me one time, they said, there's a part for every actor there, and you just haven't found it yet. And there's a sale for every salesperson. And so you have to just keep going and learn from each encounter and keep moving forward.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have to push ourselves forward, even though there are many rejections in our life. We have to be, uh, you know, we have to keep our, the braveness and push forward
Right, right. So
always. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of courageous salespeople out there because it isn't easy, right? Or everybody would
it's
do
not
it.
easy. Yeah. And what is your advice for our women audience for
For
sales?
for what audience?
For women audience
Oh, for
to
women
to
audience?
come in sales, yeah, to
Yeah.
go in sales.
I would say pick your spot. Um, there are lots of organizations that are looking for great salespeople. So make sure as you go through the interview process that you feel comfortable with the people that you're going to be working with, because you do have more options now. So don't just get, you know, um, lost by the shiny object or the money or the position or the title. Look for somewhere where you feel like you can really be heard and respected and feel comfortable with your peers and your managers, and that you can really grow in, and that respects you.
And any podcast or any books? Of course, your book is really great. Other than that book, any book or any podcast which you suggest us to listen or watch?
I would say, as far as books, one book that really spoke to me that I reread every once in a while is called The One Thing. And it's really about, what is the most important thing you can do that will make everything else easier. And I think it's a great frame of reference to consider as we have so many different choices and options and ways to go and paths in front of us. It helps me sort of remember, like, why am I doing this, and what is the most important thing I'm trying to achieve, and what am I doing that is important and contributes to that goal, and what am I doing that is maybe not necessary. So that's been a book that's really stuck with me the past few years.
Okay, thanks for that. What is that? How people can approach you, like through LinkedIn or through email?
Sure, you can reach me on LinkedIn. It's Julie Hansen Sales Training, or you can email me at julie@actingforsales.com. There's all kinds of blogs and videos on my website at juliehansen.live,
Okay.
on many of the things that we talked about. How do you make eye contact? How do you read body language? How do you use your body language on video? So you can be sure and check that out too.
Okay, so thank you, Julie, for sharing wonderful insights on virtual selling. I'm
Well,
sure all the audience must have learned a lot about the new selling skills.
well, I hope so. It's my pleasure, and great chatting with you today.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.